Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So in today's video I've got 10 tips for the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. Now these tips are designed for those who are brand new and have never used one before, a few things that you may not be aware of. If you're a regular user to the Osmo Action series, you can probably go ahead and skip this video as there'll be nothing new for you in it. Now tip number one is to do with powering off the screen while recording. While recording, we can swipe down, and this is going to give us a timer, and we can set it for when we want the screen to turn off. We can go all the way down to 3 seconds, we can go up, we can set it to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or we can have it never shut off. Now, tip number two is to do with stabilization. If you're doing activities where you're getting a lot of motion and you're finding you're getting some blur and some jitter in the footage, we can change the stabilization from daily to sport, and we do so by clicking this button here at the right-hand side. You can see at the top here we have the stabilization scenario, and by default it's set to daily. That's good for everyday filming. If you're going to be doing something with a lot of movement, we can set it to sport. That's going to make the stabilization and make the footage look a little bit better. Now, tip number three is how to switch back and forth between the internal memory and the memory card. The DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro comes with 48 gigabytes of built-in memory. And to do so, we're going to swipe down from the top to bring up our settings page. Then we're going to swipe over. And you can see here we have our memory management tool. Right now, the SD card is highlighted in yellow. That means we're recording directly to it. But we can tap on internal memory. We'll confirm the switch. And now when we record, it will record to the internal memory. From the same page, we can click on the storage button, and that allows us to format either the memory card or the internal memory. Now, while we're on the topic of internal memory and the memory card, when we're in the media preview, let's go to the thumbnail view. At the top here, you can see we have this icon. Right now, it's showing us a picture of a camera, and it says one. That means I have one file. That's listing all the content currently stored on the internal memory. And we can switch to the SD card by tapping that arrow at the top. You can see now once I've done that, it's now listing everything from the memory card. And again, we can switch back to the internal memory. Now, tip number four is about connecting microphones. With the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro, you can connect a USB-C microphone directly to the camera. There is no need for an adapter. And that includes wireless microphones such as the DJI Mic 2 or their new Mic Mini. These can plug directly into the side of the camera via the USB-C port. And on top of that, any microphone with a USB-C port is compatible, including USB-C lavaliers. The Osmo Action 5 Pro also supports Bluetooth audio. That means you can connect one of these transmitters directly to your camera, either again the new DJI Mic Mini or the DJI Mic 2. And to connect one of these transmitters directly to the camera so you don't have to plug in a receiver, what we're going to do is swipe down from the top. We're going to go to Settings. We're going to find the option called Wireless Mic. As you can see, we have two spots, transmitter 1 and transmitter 2. That means we can connect two transmitters directly to the camera. And to pair the Bluetooth microphone, what we're going to do is click on transmitter 1. And we're going to put the transmitter into linking mode by pressing and holding the linking button. You can see it picked up the microphone. Now we just have a nice simple minimal way to record good audio. And again, that works exactly the same if you're using the DJI Mic 2. Now, tip number five again is to do with audio. We can record a separate audio track with the Osmo Action 5 Pro. And that works whether you're using the built-in microphones or if you have a Bluetooth microphone or a separate microphone plugged in. And to do so, we're going to swipe down from the top. We're going to go to Settings, and we have an option there that says Built-in Mic Audio Backup. Once we're in there, we can enable it. So when you're recording with an external microphone connected to the camera, the good audio from that external microphone is going to be baked into the video file, but we're going to have a separate audio track on the memory card using the built-in microphones of the camera. Now, the next tip is to do with the media viewer again. If we go into the media preview section and we open up a file, we can get the information about that video, different settings that we've used while recording it. And we do so by clicking those three dots on the very left-hand side. And we get this little information icon at the top right-hand side. If we click on that, you can see it shows us the date and the time in which it was recorded. It's recorded at 4K, 30 frames per second. It was filmed in wide with Rocksteady enabled. It gives us the length of the clip and the file size of the clip as well. Now, tip number 7 is to do with the media playback again. We can adjust the volume or mute it altogether right from within the player. At the top right-hand side here, you can see we have a speaker icon. We can click on that. We can adjust the volume by moving that slider up and down. If we turn it all the way down, that's going to mute it. Now, the next tip here is to do with the quick switch button on the side. It's a really powerful tool. It's actually one of the really nice features of the Osmo Action series. We can fully customize this button and what modes are displayed. If you're not quite sure, basically the quick switch will cycle through predetermined modes.
Photo, video, photo, video.
You can see mine is just set to switch between photo and video, but we can swipe down from the top. We can go to the quick switch button. The first thing we can do is tell the camera what we want it to do when pressed. By default, it's going to switch between modes, but we can start and end a pre-recording, or we can lock the screen. So you can set it to whatever you find most useful. But if we have it set there to switch between modes, we can go into shooting mode and we can select what we want it to switch between. So say you want that button only to switch between slow motion and video. We can add slow motion there. We can take out photo. So now when we press it, so it's a really handy tool, but what makes it really powerful is we can create custom modes and they can be added then there as well. So you could have 2 or 3 different video modes, say one's at 30 frames per second, one's at 60 frames per second, one's at 120 frames per second. You'll be able to switch back and forth between the different frame rates or different fields of view that you have set without having to go in and change the settings every time. Now tip number 9 is to do with slow motion. They have something called super slow motion. The Osmo Action 5 Pro can film at 120 frames per second when in 4K, so that's going to offer you 4 times slow motion, but they do have a super slow motion feature that will allow up to 960 frames per second. To access that, you would just film your video normally, 4K 120 frames per second. Then you'd go into the media player. Here's a video clip I shot at 120 frames per second. So all you would do is set the video at the spot where you want this super slow motion to start. And then we hit the snail icon there. It's going to generate these super slow motion clips. Now the 4 times slow motion will still be at 4K, but the super slow motion at up to 960 frames per second will only be in 1080. Once it's done, we can connect the camera to our Mimo app and we can download the super slow motion footage. So where we go there, the footage has now been slowed down to 960 frames per second. And with this feature, you can do that 6 times on every clip. So you can have 6 segments of super slow motion. And when previewing it back right on the camera, you can see the section is highlighted in blue. That's where the super slow motion is. And we can actually click on that. If we don't like it or we want to put it in a different spot, we can actually just click this little garbage icon at the top here. That's not going to delete the video file. That's just going to delete that super slow motion segment. And lastly, tip number 10 is to do with pre-recording. By default, when you hit the record button, it's just going to start recording, but you can set the camera to pre-record. And that can be really handy if you're going to be filming something but you don't know when the action is going to start. You can just have the camera ready to go in standby mode, and once something interesting has happened, you can then hit record, and because you were pre-recording, all that action would have been captured. And I'll just show you how to set that up, and I'll just demonstrate that quickly for you. So we're going to go to our video settings down there at the bottom. We're going to click this icon at the top left-hand side. By default, it's set to video, but we're going to swipe over till we select pre-record. You can set it from 5 seconds pre-recording all the way up to 5 minutes. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you have that set, essentially the camera is recording in the background at all times, so it will drain your battery very quickly. So it's not a good thing to have set all the time, just when you know you're going to need it. So I'll show you how that works here. I'm going to set it just to 15 seconds pre-recording. So technically the camera is recording now, even though we haven't pressed the record button. And at the top here, it gives us a counter showing us how much of a pre-record buffer we have, 15 seconds. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drop this microphone in front of the camera. You can see I wasn't recording, but now I'm going to hit record. So you can see the timer actually starts at 15 seconds. So now when I go to the playback, you can see I was able to capture that microphone dropping, even though we hadn't hit the record button until after I dropped it. So that can be a really handy feature in some scenarios. Just remember, it will eat your battery very quickly. So yeah, folks, that's basically it. Those are 10 simple tips for the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it had value. Give it a thumbs up if you did. It's always greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.